Hello and welcome to the City of Glasgow swim team Back to the Water briefing. We've all been out of the water for a long time and a lot of work has been done to build us back up to going back to the pool, hopefully in the next few days. And this briefing is really important that all our members now watch this briefing and take note of the important information contained within it. Some of it you will no doubt already be familiar with. You might even have heard it in briefings or talks that you've been to already. However, it is important that we go over it again, even if you already know the information. So the aim of this session is to make you aware of the City of Glasgow swim team Back to the Water guidelines, allow you to understand the risks involved in returning to training, help you understand the risk management plans that have been put in place, help you understand your role in adhering to the guidelines, and also know what to do if you've got any questions or need any further information. As in all sectors who are returning after COVID, the most important priority is to look after one's health and well-being and keep everyone safe as possible. So these are our priorities here that we've listed. The health and well-being of all swimmers and our volunteers and coaches. We want to minimise any potential for increasing the burden that might be placed on the NHS. We want to make sure we're following the Public Health Scotland, Scottish Government and the Scottish Swimming Guidelines in relation to COVID-19. And at the same time, though, we want to make sure we're still providing a meaningful training opportunity and quality swimming experience for all our members. It's really important that all the swimmers, the volunteers, the parents, the coaches, and pool staff understand the risks associated with returning to training and also the management strategies that have been put in place to combat these risks. There are a number of written guidelines that we've followed, and you may see some of those yourself. We'll be issuing some along with this briefing. There's this briefing. There's also a video briefing of a walkthrough that you'll need to see for each venue. There's also a health screen survey and self-declaration forms that you must complete online before you're allowed to return to the pool. So what do we need to know about preparing to get back in the pool? Well, first of all, we have had both Glasgow Life and the club have done risk assessments. There's a generic risk assessment which we have anyway, which is for training within the Tallcross pool or other pools. But also, as everyone's had to do recently, we've also had to make up a COVID-specific risk assessment to show how we would mitigate the risks of the virus spreading. As I just mentioned, there's also a health screen survey and a self-declaration and briefings and videos that you need to see. So a wide range of documents have been made available to the club. Some of those you all need to see and work on. So what is COVID-19? Well, there are a lot of names around it, but COVID-19 is the Coronavirus Disease 2019, shortened to COVID-19. It's an ongoing worldwide pandemic caused by what is known as a severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2, SARS-CoV-2, as it's sometimes represented. It's a highly contagious disease and spreads predominantly by droplet transmission, but can also occur due to direct contact with an infected person or object. Although a vaccine is being worked on around the world, there is currently no effective cure or vaccine available at this time. What we do know is that most people who do get infected with it either have a very mild illness or may not even notice any symptoms at all. However, there are certain symptoms associated with COVID-19, typically a fever, a dry cough, shortness of breath, headache, and loss of taste or sense of smell. It is thought that the virus can be transmitted up to 2 days before symptoms occur, making the spread more difficult to prevent. Will you get COVID-19, and if so, how badly will you be affected? Well, as you'll be aware, anybody can catch or pass on COVID-19. No area of the population is exempt from it. It reaches all sectors, although we do know that the older members of the population and those with underlying medical conditions are more greatly affected than young and healthy people. And it can be very severe in some people, ultimately leading to death in the most severe cases. There are a number of policies being put in place by Scottish Government, Public Health Scotland and Scottish Swimming, which have been adopted by the club to help, and these will help reduce the risk of contracting and spreading the disease. How does it affect swimmers specifically? Well, it's not yet fully established how COVID-19 affects swimmers, but some studies have shown that a number of people who contract COVID-19 exhibit heart muscle involvement as part of their illness. Therefore, the risks of myocarditis are thought to increase if an athlete continues to exercise whilst suffering from COVID-19 or returns to training too soon after illness. If you do develop COVID-19 symptoms, you must stop swimming immediately and follow the appropriate medical advice. We all know about physical distancing by now, but just to emphasize it again, this requires people to be 2 meters apart, keeping that distance between the individuals, except where everyone is under 12. Appropriate physical distancing must be maintained at all times when traveling to and from training and whilst in the training environment, except when you're with people from your house. Athletes must also adhere to the Health Protection Scotland guidelines on physical distancing when away from the training environment. And obviously those guidelines and restrictions are changing on a week-to-week basis, so it's really important to keep up to date with that. However, swimming is currently allowed under the guidelines as they stand, and hopefully we're looking forward to doing that very soon. Now, part of the mitigation is to have, and all clubs will be doing this, having a COVID-19 team. And what that means is someone who's in overall charge of our COVID policies and procedures, and that'll be one of our volunteers or a committee member. And we're just confirming who that will be at the moment. And this person will have a series of duties, and then they'll be supported by a team of COVID-19 liaison officers, whose job will mainly to be at the pool, observing sessions to make sure everything's done correctly, and monitoring swimmers as they come and go from the pool to make sure that they are still healthy and are not carrying the virus as much as we can tell from contact like that. So every time you come to the pool, you will need to check in with the COVID liaison officer before you progress to the pool side. These COVID officers will be easily identifiable as they will be wearing a high visibility vest. And we'll publish shortly a full list of those people. We don't have the list exactly right now because some of the people are going through their PVG checks, as that's an important part of the process as well. But it'll be, typically there should be one at every session. It sometimes might be a coach as well, but a coach who's not actually coaching at that time. But for the most part, it will be our parent volunteers who are helping out in those roles. And we're very grateful to them for doing so. So a little bit about the schedule. What we're asking for is that you don't arrive at the pool any earlier than 15 minutes before the scheduled start time, because you do need to meet the COVID officer when you come into the pool, and we can't expect COVID officers to be there an hour in advance for the people who might arrive very early. So adjust your travel times and schedules and don't enter the building until about 10 to 15 minutes before the scheduled start time of the session. Most of our sessions will be at Tollcross, and they were starting on Tuesday the 29th of September. You'll be aware that Glasgow Life have not been able to reopen most of their other swimming facilities at this time, and also Scotstoun is closed for a longer term refurbishment anyway. We do have some other time at Mary Hill Pool on a Wednesday, and we think this will begin from the 7th of October, although we're waiting for confirmation on that. And we have a time slot for some swimmers on a Friday evening at Gorbals Swim Centre, and we hope that that one will start on the 2nd of October. Weekday mornings at Tollcross will normally start at 5:15 with entry from the building to the building from just after 5 o'clock. There may be some adjustments in that on a squad-to-squad basis, but your coach will let you know if that's the case. The Saturday morning that many swimmers were used to attending at Tollcross has changed its time, and it will now run from 8:30 till 10:30. That will be a long course session, and you should not enter the building prior to 8:15. We have good access to the pool on a weekday evening, generally between 3 o'clock and 8 o'clock in the evening. There aren't any sessions on a Sunday for the time being. Now, when we're at the pool, we will be sharing it with a different user group. That might be swimming lessons, who might be in a different part of the pool, or it might be public lane swimming. But the idea is that we're keeping those groups separate. We'll be in one half of the pool, they'll be in a different part of the pool. So the new training schedule has been sent out a week or so ago, so you should be familiar with that by now, although please understand that it is still subject to some changes from time to time, both on an immediate case, because we are in a variable situation still, and in a medium to longer term, this schedule is only a starting point based on the resources that are available to us right now, and it's not the full schedule that we have been used to in the past. But as venues open up in the future, and we hope that restrictions ease in the future, we'll be adding to that pool time as we go forward, but we can't say at this point in time when that will be. Although there is a drop in time or the number of sessions for most swimmers throughout the club, we've done our best to accommodate all the squads within the space that we have been given. And we're to make sure every squad has got a good opportunity to train, at least 3 times a week for most, and in most cases. And it's good to understand that is actually going to be a lot better than, and so we're quite lucky in this regard, than many other clubs will face around the country. And although we're starting a bit later than some clubs have done, that's not really going to be a problem in the long term, and I think we will be in a good position going forward compared to some programs. So physical distancing at the pool, what we're looking for is a very simple structure here, and it's really based on when you get to the pool and you've gone through your checks and you've found your position, you'll quickly get changed, get in, you'll do your training session, you'll get out straight away, you'll change straight away and go immediately home. We won't be conducting group pre-pool and post-pool exercises for the time being, and we're asking people to do that kind of thing at home whenever they've got time to do so. So if you're going to, if you want to feel like you need a stretch after a session, you're going to wait till you get home to do that. Likewise, if you need to limber up beforehand, try and do it before you arrive at the pool. So we want to minimize the amount of time that you're in the building, partly because there are restrictions on how many total number of people can be in the building for all different types of use. We want you to arrive beach ready or swim ready. So ideally, you'll have your costume or your trunks on underneath your clothes when you arrive at the pool. And once you've entered the building and gone through the route, which we'll show you in a minute, you'll go to one of the changing bays that we've marked out on the floor. You'll put your things down, quickly change, and go meet your coach. And all these changing bays are marked out at 2 meters apart. So you must stay 2 meters apart during this time and not bunch up with your friends and colleagues as you might normally do. And we know that will be hard for many people, but it is what we need to do to help reduce the risk of spreading the virus for everyone's benefit. Once you've met your coach, you'll be appointed to a designated lane and maybe even a space in that lane. It's likely that some of the sessions, depending on how many people are at them, will operate from both ends of the pool. So half the group might start at one end, half the group might start doing the same work at the other end of the pool. And this will reduce how many people are close to each other at any time. When you're swimming in your lane, you will obviously become closer to people at some points in time, but that's not a problem whilst you're in the water, because we know that the water is a safe place to be, and the coronavirus cannot exist in the chlorinated water. It is killed almost instantly. So it is a safe place to be whilst you're in the water, but it's important that you do maintain the physical distancing out of the water. And to this extent, there won't be any showering allowed either before or after sessions for the time being. You will be allowed to go to the toilet if you need it, but we will be asking you to really try and think carefully about that and use the toilet at home before or afterwards if you can. You won't be able to fill your drinks bottle up either, so you must come with your drinks bottle ready. When you've changed afterwards, you'll be expected to quickly leave the building and not wait around to talk with your friends. You may talk to them as long as you wish once you're outside the building. Now here's a wee map of the pool, just to help you understand the route for Toll Cross. There'll be different routes for Mary Hill and Gaubles, but we haven't got those quite prepared just yet. But for the most part, this will be the one that people need to understand. You will enter the car park as normal, and there'll be the drop-off area, which will be by the community door, the community wing of the building. There's a door there. It's just to the right of the cafe. That'll be your entry point into the building. There should be a Glasgow Life staff member inside that door, checking that who's coming in are the right type of people who should be coming in, and that no one who shouldn't be there is coming in. If and other users will be coming in that building, but they'll be going straight in. What you will do as a City of Glasgow swimmer is you will go immediately up the steps that are at that door, up onto the first floor, turn right along the corridor, enter the doorway onto the balcony, turn right again. We expect that this is the point where you'll meet the COVID officer, and they will check with you. They might check your temperature. They may ask you some questions about your health status and mark you down on a register. From there, you'll walk along the rest of the balcony, down the steps at the far side, next to where the timing booth is. And then from there, slight turn to the right, entering what we've created is the changing area, which extends into that pole vault and land area. There are crosses marked on the floor, yellow and black crosses that we've marked out on the floor. You'll move to one of these crosses, probably filling up from the front first. You'll place your bag down, you'll get changed there and go to meet your coach. After a session, you'll go immediately straight back to your bag, change as quickly as you can, and leave down the opposite side of the pool, the one where is the big balcony of seating. You'll walk straight down there. If you need the toilet, that's where it is. It's the disabled toilet just on the entry to the changing rooms. You won't be allowed to use any other toilets. That'll be the only one for and exclusively used by City of Glasgow swimmers. And then you'll enter the changing rooms into the corridor and turn left and walk straight out through the changing rooms, not stopping at cubicles or anything like that. Straight out of the door and straight out of the main door of the building back into the car park. So here's a list of some of those things. I've already mentioned them, some of them anyway, but we'll just go through again what you need to do on a daily training basis. So first of all, do not leave home if you are displaying any signs or symptoms of COVID-19 or indeed any other illness. And if you are ill and you think it is COVID-19 in particular, you should report this to one of the COVID officers. As we've said, any pre-pool exercises are to be done at home. Go to the toilet and wash your hands before you leave home. Travel to training independently or as per the current guidelines. And again, those do seem to change. And we do appreciate it is difficult for some people. When you arrive at the pool, try to make sure the timing of that is within 10 to 15 minutes of the start, because you don't, especially as we're going to the winter, you don't want to be hanging around outside in the car park for too long. You must wear a face covering, a face mask as you go into the building. You will not be allowed in if you don't have a face mask. And we recommend that you use the hand sanitizer that will be available when you do enter the building. As we've mentioned, you report to your COVID liaison officer for a health check and follow the signage and the one-way system to your changing area. Change from there, removing your face covering last, and pack all your clothes neatly into your bag, but leave it where it is. Please do not scatter your clothes all over the floor. Put your clothes and your shoes into your bag and zip it up. Pick up your equipment and head to your designated training lane as assigned by your coach. Conduct your training session, do it well, enjoy it, work hard, all the normal things in accordance with instructions from your coach. But adhere strictly to the training lane guidance that your coach gives you and the physical distancing where required. At the end of the session, you'll return to your bag, dry off and change quickly, picking up all your possessions. Do not leave any at the pool, and leave the venue promptly via the designated exit route. And if you want to stretch off, then you do that at home afterwards. A little bit more information around water bottles and training equipment. You can bring a water bottle with you. We do recommend that for hydration purposes, but you must bring them full. And going forward, you must have your name on your bottle. You will not be able to fill them up at the pool, and you must not share bottles with other users. That's why it's really important that you have your name on them clearly marked, because a lot of bottles do look exactly the same. So if you're picking up a bottle, you need to be 100% sure it's yours. You're going to bring your own training equipment and take it home each day. You need to clean it at home each day before you bring it, and also put your name on all items of your training equipment, on each fin, on each paddle, on your pull buoy, and have all of that preferably in a mesh kit bag, which also has your name on it and is easily identifiable to you. It would be worth checking with your coach if there are any specific items that you need or don't need, and therefore you can leave at home any that the coach does not require you to bring at this point in time. You will absolutely not be allowed to borrow equipment or lend equipment to others or take any equipment out of the pool store. So it's really important that you take responsibility for this. As we said, we want you to clean and sanitize your equipment every day. What happens if you become unwell whilst at the training venue? Well, in these cases, you'll report that to the coach in the first instance, and then the COVID officer as well. You'll come out of the session as quickly and as safely as possible, and you'll be asked to change and leave as soon as you can. If first aid is required, then the lifeguards will attend to you wearing their PPE if required. If you're under 18, the COVID liaison officer will inform your parents or guardians immediately, and we will ensure that anyone supporting you in this time will wear a face mask as well. You should then return home and contact NHS Scotland for the next steps as appropriate, because you'll probably want to go for a COVID test at that point. We will have the COVID liaison officer will be around to stay for the duration of each session in case any swimmer does need support. The main symptoms that you need to watch out for COVID-19 are a new and continuous cough, a high temperature or fever, and a loss of taste or smell. There can be other symptoms associated with it, but there is also a lot of symptoms which can be associated with other illnesses at the same time. So it's important to really get the right diagnosis and understand the situation. More information at this link here. If you've had COVID and you're returning to training, these are the rules that have been put in place across. These are common across the whole of the UK, and not just specific to Glasgow swimmers. So you should refrain from all training for a period of 15 days following the start of any COVID-19 symptoms. You should be symptom-free for 7 or more days before recommencing training. And you must seek medical advice if appropriate before returning to training. Starting to train earlier than the above recommendations risks developing complications of COVID-19 and therefore should be avoided. And when you do return to training, you'll need to repeat the health screening. You only have to do that once in most cases, hopefully, but you do need to do it again if you have suffered from COVID-19. So, some information now on cleaning and hygiene around the environment. A lot of work has been done on this by Glasgow Life and other agencies, and thorough environmental hygiene strategies have been put in place in the pool, and as you will have noticed in lots of buildings that you might have been going to. All of these are in keeping with the Public Health Scotland guidelines, and Glasgow Life takes all of that very seriously. And this will include a deep clean of the whole building prior to the resumption of training, and regular cleaning of all high traffic and contact surfaces before and after each training session. For example, we will be, if we've been using the blocks to dive off, they'll be sanitized before the next training session, and handrails, etc., will be wiped down. For yourself, just a reminder here that in combination with social distancing, your personal hygiene is the best defense against COVID-19. And a big part of that is washing your hands regularly. And there's a wee diagram there to show you how to do that, but we do recommend thorough washing with soap and water for 20 to 30 seconds. And washing your hands before you return, before you leave home and return once you get home as well. Use the hand gel that is provided to you on entry to the venue. There won't be any additional hand gel around the poolside, so we recommend that you bring your own hand gel in one of the small plastic containers, and that you can use that as well if and when required. It is difficult, but please try and avoid touching your face with your hands, and that is part of good hygiene Often we touch our face without knowing it, but if we can recognize it and avoid doing so, it is helpful. Regarding equipment, again, we've just mentioned some of this, but personal equipment must be cleaned with antiviral wipes or solution before and after use, and you're going to be responsible for that. As we've said, you will not store it at the venue, and sharing of equipment is not allowed. In terms of personal protective equipment, what's known as PPE, it is a requirement that swimmers must wear a face mask on entering the building, and then keep it on until the point that you've changed for the session. Leave your face mask in your bag. Don't take it to the pool edge. Leave your face mask with your bag and belongings. And then when you return there after the session, immediately put your face mask on first and wear it until you leave again. Coaches will also be wearing face masks at all times in the pool hall, although there are occasions when it may be necessary for a coach to take those off when social distancing can be maintained. Lifeguards will also wear face masks if in contact with customers, but they don't need to wear them whilst sat on their high chairs. Your face mask can be a disposable one or any specific material that covers your mouth and nose. And anyone who does need to work within 2 meters of another person must wear the appropriate PPE for the task. So what's the staffing? Well, there'll be coaches on the pool side, you'll appreciate that. Generally 1 coach per squad that's in the water, although we may have a little bit of overlap with that. And obviously you as the swimmer will be there. And there'll be lifeguards around the pool side as normal. And there'll be a COVID liaison officer present. You should not, for the most part, come into contact with anyone else. The public will be separate. The public will be using the changing rooms. You won't be using the changing rooms, apart from when you walk out at the end of a session. There is a limit on the total number of people that can be allowed in the building at any one time, but hopefully we're going to be well within that, within our sessions. However, that does mean that we can't allow any parents to spectate for the time being. And so parents will not be allowed to come into the building with you and sit in the stands and watch. You know, that would only create more contact points, touch points, and additional cleaning to be required afterwards. So for the time being, hopefully not for the forever, but for the time being, parents will not be allowed to spectate in the building. And that means they'll need to either wait outside in the cars, or you can obviously go away and come back and pick up your child later. But we do ask that if you are going to go away, make sure your child has entered the building successfully first before you go away. If you're bringing your child on public transport yourself, unfortunately there isn't a solution to that within the building. We've looked into that, and it's not possible for a parent who's doing that to enter the building temporarily, again for the points we've made and the numbers that are allowed in the building. If there's any medical attention required, this is the responsibility of the lifeguards around the poolside, and they would also look after any further emergency action should it be needed ahead of any emergency services arriving at the pool. So managing the risks, you'll hopefully understand by now from all this that we have been working closely with Glasgow Life to put a detailed plan in place to minimise the risks to all staff and athletes. And everybody plays an important role in managing the risks, and we must all take personal responsibility to ensure we meet the requirements. That's in the pool, and also when we're out of the pool, school or college or university or wherever we are, we all have a responsibility to do the right thing and make sure we're not putting ourselves or indeed other people at any additional risk that could be avoided. If you don't adhere to the guidance, it is possible that you might be asked to or removed from training or asked not to come back. This is important because it may also cost the rest of the squad the right to train. As ultimately in the worst case scenario, if we're not behaving correctly, the whole club could be told it's not suitable for you to come and train here anymore. So we really need you to be on point with all of that. Of course, we're not going to get this perfect all of the time. We don't expect people to avoid every single mistake. So, we will have flexibility around that. But if you are involved in or you witness something that contravenes the back to the water guidance or the COVID regulations, please let us know via a coach or one of the COVID officers. So we're nearing the end, and this is a summary checklist of the things you need to make sure you do or have done before you come back to the pool. First of all, you need to make sure you've watched all of this briefing, and we will post it online and then send out a note with a link so people can watch it. That's how you will have accessed it, hopefully. You need to watch the Tollcross walkthrough video, which will be a separate video, and likewise the video that we create for other pools when they become available. This will show you in the same way that the map did, but visually through a video, one of our athletes arriving at the building, walking to their designated area, changing, and then leaving the building as well. We've created a list of do's and don'ts, and we'll send that out to you separately as well. We want you to read and familiarize yourself with that. And there are 2 important forms that you must complete online. Links will be sent out for these. And you just click on the link, and it's very simple forms. They don't take more than a minute of your time. And you must have those back in to us by midnight on Sunday this weekend. That would be the 27th of September. Midnight Sunday. In that, because we do need time to process those and make sure we've recorded who's filled them in and who's not. If you've not completed those forms, you will not be allowed to train. The COVID officer will check that you've completed those forms, and if you've not completed them, they will ask you to leave. So it's really important that you do that first. Even if you've done it already, for those who've been going to Pinxon, please do this again so that you can be clear on this briefing and you've updated your declaration. If you do need to, if any of your contact details have changed, please can you update these on your Team Unify account or through the On Deck app. That's really important in case we ever need to contact you. You must clearly label all your equipment with your name. You may have heard me say in the past that you should do this anyway, and some people do, but now we need everybody to do it. From the oldest Masters swimmer to the youngest foundation swimmer. We want you to come to the pool swim ready, and we recommend you bring with you some form of clothing which is like a onesie or a slider, a large coat or a dressing gown to wear when you depart after the session. Excuse me. This will make changing much easier for you and allow you to leave as quickly as possible. Bring a face mask to all sessions and don't come if you're not feeling very well. And remember facts, as the government keep telling you, or in our case, GITWAGOG, as I've made up that acronym there. As we said earlier, get in, train well, get out, go home. And here's a little message from one of our swimmers who's already been doing some swimming.
I'm just really looking forward for Ultras to open. Fortunately enough, I was given a space to train up in Stirling, so I've been training for 3 weeks now. And the setup is a bit different to what we're used to. So one swimmer lane, paintball pulled at home, also wearing a mask whilst getting changed. But you get used to all those things, and it's for everyone's benefit that you're doing it. Also, I'm really hoping all the pools reopen soon so that everyone can get back to doing what they love.
So, if you have any questions about swimming matters, please contact myself, Ian Wright, or Coach Danielle Brayson, and we should be able to answer them for you. If you have anything related to COVID-19 or welfare matters, you should contact either the COVID officer, whose name will be listed in the near future, but can be used. You can use this email address already, covid19officer@swimglasgow.co.uk, or for any welfare and protection issues that you're concerned about, you can contact Angela Taylor with the number and email address as written just there. Thank you for listening to this briefing.